Hello everyone, my name is Karina Castro, and the topic of my debate is theories of globalization. And I will be arguing that the rules-based system is not necessary for the governance of the planet. There are many enforcement issues and inconsistencies under the rules-based system. Foreign policy is governed by an abundance of laws, including bilateral, regional, and international treaties that have produced a very complex structure. And there could be many inconsistencies between the different agreements, which are often too ambiguous. And because of the system's complexity and lack of authority, it is very challenging for one entity to take responsibility for negative outcomes that may arise due to the lack of transparency of the laws that are created under the rules-based system. For example, human rights laws are often too ambiguous, which causes authorities to violate these laws. And therefore, developing countries are the ones affected most by this, as their human rights are constantly being violated. And because there's not one entity to really blame for this, since there's many entities working on these laws, it becomes very difficult to break this pattern of inequality between developed and developing countries. Now, the rules-based system approach also fails to enforce the promises made by developed countries to deliver certain kind of aid to developing countries. For example, they have failed to deliver good COVID vaccines to Latin America, Africa, Asia, and other developing countries, which has caused greater instability, migration, disease. Because the countries are not working well together, it's causing a lot of inequality. And because of the lack of policy transparency, policies created under the rules-based system, it is also causing lack of democracy. Now, corporations that engage globally often do so without taking responsibility for their actions. For example, resource exploitation. There's a lot of corrupt and ambiguous arrangements that are created, which harm certain communities because their environmental resources are constantly being taken away from them because countries don't know how to come to terms, or set any firm regulations when it comes to these kinds of resources. And developing countries are the ones being negatively affected by this as well. There are also many limits and constraints under the rules-based system. International rules can significantly impact how wealth and resources are distributed around the world. So within the regulatory constraints channel, governments may be discouraged from establishing or reforming regulations because of the rules-based system and its limitations, only because they fear lawsuits coming from foreign investors. For example, the World Trade Organization has also given developing nations a number of challenges and limitations, including high tariffs or particular goods in significant markets that continue to impede major trade and negatively impacts the economy, preventing from developing nations to actually become better and being up to par to developed nations. Therefore, the rules-based system causes a lot of inequality and is very inefficient.